Are you tired? You need a real break from the stresses of life? Well, Jesus said we could find rest in Him. Jesus said, find rest, take a load off. Good morning, and welcome to 755 Live. For about 5 minutes, you'll hear all about easy to remember soundbite versions of what Jesus said. And the point is to help you experience life to the fullest, the Jesus way. Today's Jesus Said comes from Matthew 11, 28 through 30, and we'll be reading from the NET translation today. And it begins with Jesus saying in verse 28, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, because I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and my load is not hard to carry." Well, as we unpack that today, which is the inspiration for our soundbite, I've never heard anybody say, well, following Jesus is the easiest thing I've ever done. And why isn't this easy? It almost seems like a contradiction here. If Jesus said his yoke or burden is easy to bear and not hard to carry, why does it sometimes seem so difficult? Well, what is a yoke? If you can imagine cattle or horses pulling a wagon, the yoke is the cross piece of wood that attaches the two animals together so they can pull as a team. It's important to realize that Jesus didn't say your yoke would be easy. His yoke is. So when things seem hard, could it be that you're trying to do things on your own and not the Jesus way? Well, the first step is to actually come to Jesus. Earlier in Matthew 11, Jesus rebuked the cities where he had taught and performed miracles, and yet they still didn't repent and follow him. And he clearly let them know that they had chosen the path of destruction. Now, it's in that context that Jesus gives this invitation to rest. I think he's saying, don't choose the hard path. Choose to follow me instead. And this sounds so simple, but you can't follow Jesus without really following Jesus. And the first step for the tired and burdened, come to him. But there are more steps. Let's read verse 29 again from Matthew 11. "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, because I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Take his yoke and learn from Jesus. Learn what? Well, to be gentle, humble in heart. You see, that's where the real rest is. Now, to the audience in this time, the Jews in the first century, they were experts at what they called rest. They called it Sabbath. And one day a week, they would do no work like God had commanded. And they were so invested in this Sabbath that they added a lot of extra rules too. And Sabbath had become a burden and kind of a game of finger pointing, not really about rest and not really about God. And right after Jesus said this, the disciples ran into some of those extra rules about the Sabbath in Matthew 12, 1 and 2. About that time, Jesus was walking through some grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, so they began breaking off some heads of grain and eating them. But the Pharisees saw them do it and protested, "Look, your disciples are breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath." Well, Jesus went on to explain that it was the Pharisees' extra rules and judgment that were the problem, not what the disciples did. And today we like to think, oh, well, we're not like the Pharisees. We don't have all those extra Sabbath rules. But in the same way, real rest isn't doing whatever we want. Rest is laying down our own works, our own will, to only do what Jesus said. And it's true, yeah. I don't have to keep the Sabbath. And that's true in the sense of keeping the law as a form of righteousness. But if resting in Jesus as the real Sabbath means doing whatever we want, whenever we want, Well, we've missed the point. Adding to what Jesus said and trying to carry the load on our own. And that's when things get tough. And that's why we need to learn from Jesus. We need to learn from him humility and gentleness. Because when we don't follow him, we try to do things our own way and actually try to do God's job. And it's hard work trying to be God. And when we do things our own way, that's exactly what we are trying to do. But Jesus said, find rest. Take a load off. How can you put that into action today? Thank you so much for listening. If this is meaningful to you, it really does mean a lot to me if you like it, if you share it, if you comment. I really appreciate you. Hope that you have an amazing day. And I hope this time together has helped you live life to the fullest, the Jesus way. And remember, follow Jesus today. Love first.